How's it going, football fans around the world, and welcome back to my channel. So what I have done for you guys in today's video is I have figured out who is going to get top 4. I've done a video like this in the past when I was doing the title race, and I'm doing it again for the top 4 race. There are currently 4 teams battling out for top 4. Technically it's 5, but since I already did Manchester United in my title race, because at the time they were technically in one, I decided not to put him in this video just because I've already done that one. So if you want to see how many points I think they'll have by the end of the season, well then check that video out. But for this video, the 4 teams in this one are going to be Newcastle, Spurs, Liverpool, and yes, my friends, Brighton. You may disagree with me there, but if you don't think Brighton are in the title race, we'll think again. Because if you think Liverpool are in one, will Brighton have the same amount of points as them? Not only that, they have a game in hand. So yes, this is today's video. I'm going to be showing you guys what I believe each team will have by the end of the season. So, for example, Tottenham. We got Tottenham here on the screen. Yellow highlights means I believe they're going to draw. Green highlight means I think they're going to win the game and get the full 3 points. Red highlights then obviously means I think they're going to lose the game and get no points. So that is what I have done. I have gone through each of the 4 teams. I've gone through each of their fixtures till the end of the season and figured out the total point tally they will have by the end of it. So let's get into the video. So we're going to start here with Tottenham. Tottenham are currently in that 4th place spot, but they have played the most games. They've played 28 games, which is 2 more than both Liverpool and Newcastle, and 3 more than Brighton. Although they're in that place as of right now, they could very much lose it here soon. So their last 10 games, they will start coming back from international break, playing versus Everton. I have them tying against them because Everton are in a relegation battle. They've found a bit of form here recently, and playing a Sean Dyche team, I can see Tottenham having some struggles against them, especially away from home, which I've also put here in the video. I forgot to mention that. I've also not only put the fixture and if I believe they're going to win or lose it, I also put there if they're going to be at home or away. At Everton means away. Also, I put the A and the H for standing for away and home. I do have them drawing against Everton, and then I do have them picking up the 3 points versus Brighton. That could be controversial because Brighton have been fantastic this season, but just because it's going to be at home for Spurs, I can see Spurs dropping points to Everton and then somehow picking up the 3 points versus Brighton. It's Spurs, right? They're so unpredictable. But then I do have them winning against Bournemouth as well. That will be at home as well for them. And then this right here, this is where a rough patch for Spurs, I believe, is going to happen. So I have them losing against Newcastle. It's going to be at Newcastle, and Newcastle have been fantastic this season. They're the best defensive side in the league this year. So yeah, I just don't see Spurs going over there and winning the game. So that's why I have Newcastle beating them. And then for Manchester United, that will be at home for Spurs. But if we look at the recent record between Manchester United and Spurs, Manchester United have been enjoying a bit of success. Manchester United have definitely had the better hand over them as of recently. So because of that, I have them losing against Man United. And then for Liverpool, it's the exact same reason for Man United, but times 10. If we look at the record between Liverpool and Tottenham, the last time Tottenham were able to beat Liverpool was back in 2017. And that's in all competitions. So just not in the Premier League, in all competitions, Tottenham has not been able to beat Liverpool. They have been able to pick up a few draws. They've picked up 3 since then, but other than that, it's been all Liverpool. So that fixture for me was a no-brainer. I'm honestly going to probably put money down that Liverpool is going to win that game. So yes, I do have them losing against Liverpool, and it's at Anfield. No one really succeeds at Anfield unless you're Real Madrid. Moving on, their last 4 games will be versus Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Brentford, and Leeds. I have them winning all those games except for Brentford. Brentford, they're a really tough team. It's going to be at home for Spurs, so I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs do win. But, you know, it's tough for me to see Spurs winning 4 games in a row. The fact that I don't have them losing at least one of them is a bit iffy, but I just feel like since I had them losing 3 in a row, that they're then going to go on a run to end the season strong. But if they are going to drop points to someone, which they most likely will, I believe it's going to be Brentford. This now brings us to how many points they will have. So for their last 10 matches, I have them earning 17 points, which will then bring him to a total of 66. Now, I do want to mention this. Don't focus more so who I have him losing to or dropping points to. Focus more so the amount of points that they will earn from the fixtures, because some of these could flip-flop, right? Some of these can switch, right? Like maybe I can totally see Newcastle. I can totally see Tottenham beating Bournemouth. I mean, losing to Bournemouth and then beating Newcastle. Like that could happen, but it still wouldn't change the fact that they still earned 17 points from there, because then that would just reverse itself. So focus more so how many points they'll earn from these fixtures rather than exactly who it is to, because although that is important, the main thing here is the amount of points they'll have by the end of this. So I have Spurs earning 17 points from the last 10, which will then bring them to a total of 66. So yeah, let's just move on and see how that compares to the other teams. So the next team on the list is Brighton. Yes, Brighton. So Brighton, unlike Spurs, have played the least amount of games so far. So they're going to have a hectic, tight schedule for the rest of the season. And I have them doing pretty well. I mean, yeah, is there a bit of red in there? Yes, but like I said, they played 13 more matches, I believe. So yeah, so I do have him picking up the 3 points versus Brentford. Another controversial one, but since it is at home for Brighton, I just have them edging that one, and I do believe they have the ability to win that game. I mean, even if we look at their last match versus Brentford, yes, Brentford were able to get the better of them, but Brighton weren't bad. And it's really tough to beat Brentford at home. They have like the best home record, I believe. I believe they haven't lost at home, so it's no surprise that they lost there. But at home, at Brighton, I expect Brighton to pick up the points there. I do have them beating Bournemouth away from home. And then, again, they're going to lose to Tottenham. I already explained that one earlier, so I'm not going to repeat myself. And then Chelsea. So why I have Brighton then kind of slipping here in these past two matches is because if we look at the run of results, Brighton will have 4 back-to-back games away from home. So if you were to ask Brighton and Brighton fans, I think they would be more than happy to pick up 7 points in 4 games away from home. I think they would be more than happy to take that, especially since 2 of those games are going to be versus Tottenham and Chelsea. So yeah, and then after those 4 games, they then return home for 3 games in a row, which would be versus Wolves, Manchester United, and Everton. I have them picking up 2 wins versus Wolves and Everton, and then I do have them tying against Manchester United. That will be at home for Brighton. Brighton were able to get the best of Man United at the beginning of the season, if we remember. So I expect Man United to kind of have a chip on their shoulder to want to get some vengeance. But I do believe Brighton have the quality and have the players to get themselves at least a point versus Manchester United, since it is at home. So that's why I went with the draw. And then they then go away again versus Arsenal. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not saying that Brighton don't have the ability to pick up points versus Arsenal, but it's Arsenal. They're top of the league for a reason. It's going to be at the Emirates. So yeah, I do have them losing versus Arsenal. And then I do have them bouncing back versus Southampton. And then I do have them losing yet again. I believe this will be the last game of the season for them, because if we look at the 2 results below those, that is Newcastle and Manchester City. Those games were postponed earlier due to domestic tournaments, and there's no way they're going to add those at the end of the year. So they're probably going to add Newcastle and Manchester City somewhere midweek in between these games right here. So yes, Aston Villa will be the last match of the season, and I do have them losing that. Reason being is because it's going to be away at Villa. Even though Villa are in the bottom half of the table, they're right at the top of it. And if we look at the point difference between them and the team above them, they're tied with Chelsea currently. And then if we look at the difference between them and the team below them, they're 11 points clear of the team right behind them, which is Crystal Palace. So although 11th doesn't look that great, Villa are having a pretty decent season. Not only that, they've picked up some really good form here in the last 3 matches. I believe they've won their last 3. So yeah, I can see them being a tough team to beat, and I can see Brighton then stumbling against them. Now, these 2 matches right here, they're at the bottom of my list, and the only reason being is because I don't know when they'll be postponed, so I just threw them in at the bottom. These 2 matches can affect some of these other results. But like I said, we don't know when they're going to happen. So what I decided to do here is just look at the team they're playing against, look at where they'll be, and I gave my prediction off that. So I do have them losing against Newcastle. It's going to be at Newcastle. And yeah, I've already explained how good Newcastle have been this season. So I do have them dropping points against them. Now, this one may surprise you. I do have them beating Manchester City. Reason being is because if we look back in the video where I made about the title race and when I talked about Manchester City, I did have Manchester City losing to Brighton. The reason being is because the way Manchester City have been this season, I do expect them to lose a few more games. And the two most likely candidates I believe they'll lose to is Brighton and Brentford. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to stick with my original pick, and I'm going to go with Brighton beating Manchester City at home at Brighton, which would then bring them to 23 points in their last games of the season, which would then bring them to a total of 65. So I do have them finishing 1 point below Spurs, which will then eliminate them for top 4. Sorry, Brighton fans. You guys have been really good this year, but I just can't see you guys making top 4. But who knows? Maybe you guys can make the Europa League. We'll see. Let's move on to our next team. So the next team is Liverpool. So Liverpool, they're currently in 6th place on 42 points, tied with Brighton. They have played a game more than them. So a lot has to happen, right? A lot has to happen for Liverpool to have any shot at all at making top 4. And as you guys can already see, I have them ending the season pretty well. And now before you look at me crazy and before you doubt me, before you judge me, let me explain to you guys why. So I do have them losing to Manchester City that first game back. Reason being is because look, it's Manchester City. It's going to be at the Etihad. It won't be at Anfield. Yes, are these games typically hard to predict? And yes, have Liverpool enjoyed their fair share of results versus us recently? Yes, but I do expect Manchester City to take care of business at home. So I do have them then losing to Manchester City. But from there on out, it's looking pretty good. I do have them tying against Chelsea. So I guess their first 2 games back won't be that great. But the reason why I've had them tying against Chelsea is because, again, of what has been happening recently. If we look at Liverpool's last 5 games versus Chelsea, they tied the last 5. Now, I know technically they got wins in 2 of those, but those were in PKs. If we're talking about full time, they've tied Chelsea the last 5 times. The last 3 matches were even 0-0. So again, I decided to keep the streak going. So I do have them tying against Chelsea as well at Stamford Bridge. But then for the rest of the games, I have them doing well. I have them beating Arsenal. Again, history will tell us that Liverpool will more than likely win this game. Arsenal struggle at Anfield like most teams do. So that's no surprise. And like I just said, most teams do not succeed at Anfield. And that is a huge reason as to why I have Liverpool doing well for the rest of the season. Because if we look at a lot of the big games they have for the rest of the season, it's going to be at home for them. They have Arsenal at home. They have Tottenham at home. They have Fulham at home. They have Brentford at home. All those tough teams, they're going to be playing at home. So that's why I expect Liverpool to do well. Not only that, Luis Diaz is on his way back. I believe he's having his full week of training this week. I also heard that he's going to be in the traveling team going into the Etihad. I doubt he'll start, but it looks like Diaz is making his way back, and I believe he's coming at the perfect time. Well, maybe not the perfect time, but better late than never, and I believe he's going to be that spark that Liverpool need. And because of that, I do see Liverpool making a late charge for the top 4. So that's why I have Liverpool finishing well, which will bring Liverpool for their last games of the season, earning themselves 25 points, which would then put them at 67 points for the season, which does put them ahead of Brighton and Tottenham. Just a point over Tottenham. Now, is that enough to get him in the top 4? Let's find out, because we got one more team on the list, which is Newcastle. So Newcastle, their first game back from international break is Manchester United. I have them winning that game. I mentioned it in my other video. The reason why I have Newcastle beating Manchester United is because I believe this game is going to be like a vengeance game for them. It is at home for Newcastle. Manchester United were able to beat them in the League Cup final, which obviously Newcastle isn't going to be happy about. So I'm sure Newcastle are going to have a chip on their shoulder at home versus Manchester United, versus the team that took away their chance to finally get some silverware in how many years. So yeah, I have Newcastle then beating Manchester United. The next game they have is versus West Ham. That will be away from home. I do have them winning that one. And then Brentford. The Brentford game is the one I have them losing. And it's the only one I have them losing in this last stretch of games. Reason why I got them losing to Brentford is because it's going to be at Brentford. Brentford, I believe, have the best record at home. They haven't lost. They've drawn a few, but they haven't lost. So that's why I have them losing against Brentford. I didn't have him drawing against Villa. I've already explained how decent Villa have been this season. It's going to be at Villa Park, so I do have him dropping points again there. And then versus Tottenham, I've already explained that one, so I'm not going to say anything much other than that is at home for Newcastle, so I expect Newcastle to win there. And then as for Everton, yet again, Everton are a relegation team, so I expect Everton to be a tough team to play against at their home at Goodison Park. So I can see Newcastle dropping points versus them, so that's why I gave it a draw. And then they'll be back home versus Southampton, which I expect them to win. And then another controversial one, they will be at home to Arsenal. I do have them drawing that one. Reason being is because I said it in my other video. Let's look at Arsenal's last few games. Arsenal have 4 really tough fixtures in a row. They have Manchester City, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Brighton. I can see them making their fans sweat a bit, so that's why I have them dropping a lot of points in those 4 games. And I just think Newcastle will be able to take advantage of an Arsenal side that could potentially be struggling in that run of games. So that's why I got Newcastle then tying against Arsenal, and then I have them winning back-to-back versus Leeds and Leicester. So that now brings me to Chelsea, which you may have noticed I left blank. The reason why I left it blank is because from Leicester and up, that would put Newcastle, so before this Chelsea match, that would put Newcastle at 67 points, which would be tied with Liverpool. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, what about goal differential? How is that looking? Well, if we look at goal differential, Newcastle has plus 20 and Liverpool have plus 18. So it is very, very tight. And who knows how it's going to look by the time we get to the last game of the season. If Liverpool do go on this great run, which I predicted them to, I can see them having a higher goal differential than Newcastle. I can see Newcastle needing at least something in this Chelsea match to get them over Liverpool. So yeah, that's why I left it blank. I'm struggling on deciding who I believe is going to make top 4, but I do have a team in mind, and that team is Newcastle. I have Newcastle finishing with a total of 68 points, 1 point ahead of Liverpool. Reason why I've chosen Newcastle is honestly because I believe they deserve it. I think they've been a fantastic side this season. They are so good defensively. I just think that they're just going to be able to do enough to get them in the top 4. I'm sorry, Liverpool fans. This is going to be yet another last day of heartbreak. You guys have been through so much already, going to the last game of the season, hoping that you can get over Manchester City, not being able to do it, and then having to deal with it yet again when it comes to top 4. I'm sorry I'm doing this to you guys, but this is just what I think. I think Newcastle will just do enough to get in the top 4. It's going to be tight. I got Spurs on 66, Brighton on 65, Liverpool on 67, Newcastle on 68. It's going to be very, very tight. But you know what I like about this video and what I like about these type of videos is that this just shows you what needs to be done. It gives you a visual image of what needs to be done for these teams to do it. Look at what Newcastle's going to have to do if they want to get into top 4. Look at the run Liverpool is going to have to go on a run just to maybe get a sniff at it. That's what I like about these videos, is that it gives you a visual of what is going to be needed, what is needed from each of these teams if they want to have a shot at top 4. And that's why I do this. But yeah, I do have Newcastle just edging it. So this would put Newcastle at 4th, Liverpool 5th, Spurs 6th, and Brighton 7th. So that does have a little change. So Tottenham will then drop 2 positions. Liverpool will go up 1. Newcastle will go up 1, and Brighton will stay the same. Yes, my people, that is how I have the season finishing out. Newcastle in the top 4. And after just looking at the table, you guys may think to yourself, yo, why isn't Brentford then in the conversation, since they have the same amount of points as Brighton and Liverpool? Well, Brentford have played more games than both those teams, and yeah, I just feel like 5 teams would have been too much. We're already at 31 minutes of record time. So yeah, and I just don't. I rate Brentford a lot. Don't get me wrong; they're a fantastic team. What they've been able to do is great. But yeah, I just didn't throw them in here. But yeah, this is how I have the top 4 race finishing. Please let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know where you guys think I've gotten wrong. Is there any results that I've got here that you don't agree with? Please let me know. I'm totally up for debate. I respond to all of my comments. But yeah, other than that, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because a lot more content's coming out soon, and I'll see you guys later.